that ownership piece, do you think with some of these big old contractors that, like some of them are like 50, 100 years old, do you think the layers and layers of approvals are like a reaction to like screw ups in the past? And
Yeah.
because like maybe because you are a modern company, less than 20 years old or 20 years old this year, you actually have visibility of things through technology now. It's not like old school where you need layers of
I thought you were going
whatever.
to say that you haven't had the time to make all the mistakes.
Make all the
Yeah,
mistakes.
not quite. There's also that question.
Welcome back to the Offsite Podcast, episode 103. I'm Jason Lancini, joined once again by Carlos Cavallo, and this week by two special guests as we're diving into the story of how an Australian privately owned rail business and contractor grows from a spare bedroom in 2005 to over 1,700 employees globally, and Australia's leading rail business with operations in multiple countries, including now the US. So super pumped to be joined by Will Thompson, who's General Manager Projects for Martinus North America. Oh, the company we're talking about is Martinus. And Mitch Corrigan, who's pre-construction manager for Martinus North America. Two Aussies living their best lives in Austin, Texas. Guys, thank you very much for giving up the time.
Thanks for having us on.
Great to be here.
We did have a little preamble about what life is like in Austin. If you could do the PG version, what's the highlight of the move so far?
Yeah, I mean, for me, just Austin in general is a really cool city. It's got a lot of things going on. They've done really well here. I've brought my young family over, so they've set it up really well for families. They've got a lot of good sporting events here with the Texas Longhorns and University of Texas. And then I'd say like a big highlight is actually finding out that it was really green and a lot of water here. So a lot of swimming holes, a lot of different springs to jump into and all the rest of it. So sort of thinking in your head when you're moving to Central Texas.
You're turning up to a desert.
Thinking that you might be turning up to a desert or something like that, or you know, somewhere that's
movie.
just... Yeah, that's it. But sort of like Landman out or whatever it is out in West Texas. But no, it's a great town. The Southern hospitality is a real thing. Everyone here is just so friendly. It's very welcoming place.
Nice. And Will, have you got boots and a hat yet?
I do. I've got boots. I've got a hat. There's a lot of cowboy shops around. But, you know, to reiterate Mitch's point, the people are so friendly. A lot of similarities to Sydney, Australia, where I'm from. No beaches. However, there's watering holes. So lots of...
They're called watering holes.
Yeah, they're called watering holes.
Springs.
And springs.
Yes, a lot of natural springs that flow up and they've captured them in pools that recycle the water consistently. So there's a whole bunch of areas around that have these different springs, and some of them are cold, some of them are warm. So you can get your fix really anywhere.
Yeah, and we're both big Texas Longhorns supporters now from the local college football team. So unfortunately, they're not having a great season. But you know, we both watch the games most Saturdays. You know, having a few beers together. So that's great.
Have you been to one of the the stadiums are unreal?
We have. So. Yeah, the local stadium here is, I think it's 102,000 capacity. Huge.
Yeah. So, I think we looked it up. Of the top 10 largest capacity stadiums in the world, 8 of them are college football stadiums.
Yeah. So it's a bucket list thing to do. Yeah. So you guys, what an awesome opportunity. Maybe to frame the conversation and give context as to what we can dive into. For those that don't know, and for those in other countries of the world, Martinus is, I think, about a 19-year-old Australian company.
20
this year.
20 this year, right?
20 this year.
Yeah. And it was founded and is Australian founded and led and owned. And it must be one of Australia's largest privately owned, or is Australia's largest privately owned rail business or rail contractor, which I think is the world of locally owned and operated contractors in a world of international firms buying up all of the contractors in different countries is is an increasing rarity. I think there's like two things that make Martinus really unique in my perspective. One is culture. In our, Carlos and I in our job get the pleasure of talking to most of the largest contractors in Europe, UK, Australia, New Zealand. And you kind of immediately get a sense of the culture of a company through talking to the folks that work there. My sense of from the very first interaction with any person from the Martinus business is everyone feels very connected to the direction of the company. They feel very engaged in what the business is trying to achieve, and also feel like they have high ownership in the company. So I think the culture of Martinus is super unique. And then the other thing that I think, just to frame this up, is really unique is I can't think of many other Australian construction-based businesses that are exporting work to the US. A really unique company that's obviously got big desires and plans for the future, and you guys are at the spearhead in North America. So what a real interesting opportunity. So a bunch of areas we could dive into, but I'd like to maybe start with putting that in context and that journey. I think, Will, you've been at Martinus for like 8 odd years. Mitch, 6, 7, I think. If 7 is it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I don't want to sell you short there on. So yeah, maybe Will, if I hand to you first, just like your observation through the journey of working at Martinus.
Yep.
How and what that kind of like leads to in terms of like the North America move.
Yeah, so my journey and observation, I suppose, one thing to note is Mitch and I actually worked together prior to Martinus, and we met prior there. We actually played rugby together. So we've been friends ever since. And, my observation from, being at 2 larger contractors in Australia and then coming over to Martinus, it was just a real breath of fresh air. Everyone was so friendly, you're mates with everyone. There's a really flat organizational structure. Okay, so we really reiterate the point of ensuring that everyone's got a voice. Everyone's got the right to make a decision. If it's commercially right, safe, and morally right, we give them some ownership and accountability to make those decisions. The right people, people. It's the core of the business here. It's not just a hierarchy. If we've got the right people within the teams, then that leads to a very good culture, okay, and a success. The other thing is, very rarely will someone say, that's not my job. Everyone's got a job and role to play within the business. So we really drive that. We really drive that culture to making sure that no one ever says that it's not their job. That's my feedback on Martinus here.
You've been there for some time, and you'd worked at large tier 1 contractors, or both of you had before. What is the root of that cultural difference at Martinus?
I think the root of it is that we're given accountability and we're given ownership. So you don't have to, for every decision, go up the chain to ask for permission for things. Again, what Will said, if it makes sense commercially, financially, if it's morally the right decision with the information you have at that time, you're backed to be able to make that call and continue on. And so it was really nice coming from, the Sydney Light Rail and a few other projects like that, where we got bogged down pretty heavily in those approvals, having to go up the chain, signed off, and then back down, and all the rest of that. So, moving from that into a company where it's, okay, go. A quick decision is better than no decision. Even if it's slightly wrong, just go and make it work. It meant that I think that a lot of the time and effort was spent then by everyone doing the construction and making the construction go as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible, which is then enjoyable. I mean, that's why we're engineers. We want to build stuff. That's why you've got the site team. They want to be on site building stuff. You don't want to be twiddling your thumbs waiting for approvals or whatever else it is that you've got in a lot of the bigger companies.
That ownership piece, do you think with some of these big old contractors that, like some of them are like 50, 100 years old, do you think the layers and layers of approvals are like a reaction to like screw ups in the past? And because like maybe because you are a modern company, less than 20 years old or 20 years old this year, you actually have visibility of things through technology now. It's not like old school where you need layers of
I
whatever.
thought you were going to say that you haven't had the time to make all the mistakes.
Make all the mistakes.
Not quite. There's also that question. But like back in the day, you can imagine why you needed these approvals, because you have no idea what people are up to without like tracking and audit trail. So do you think because you have built the company in the modern era, do you think that's part of the reason why you can be so
definitely
focused?
And definitely. But I also think that it starts at the top with Martinus. You know, if you bring up systems or processes, those words, or the word org chart in front of Trevin Martinus, he'll get upset with you. You know, he doesn't like systems and processes. He doesn't like org charts. He wants us to be working and pushing and nimble and agile, so that he doesn't want these structures in place to avoid that from happening. So it starts from him and you know, the C-suite and all the rest of it in Martinus. It's
flows downhill.
Let's not get bogged down with these. You know, we could put them in place and it could provide a better, you know, look, I guess you could say. But does it make the boat go faster? And that's the big thing, is that it doesn't. It doesn't make the boat go faster. And yes, there might be some mistakes along the way, but you learn from those. You make sure the individual learns from those, and make sure the teams learn from those, and then make sure the company learns from it, and you keep plugging along. So it really is. It's a big thing that's come from the top and pushed into the full team.
I think those layers and layers. It's also a form of micromanagement as well, and you know, we cut all that out here. We give the ability for all workers to make their own decisions, and I think that's what we're trying to drive here in the US. Projects kick off so quickly here. You're bidding a job that takes 4 weeks, probably on average. Mitch, would you say probably 4 weeks on average to bid? 2 weeks later, you need to be on site doing works. It's a very, very quick turnaround. There's no red tape here.
It's awesome.
It's great.
It's awesome.
It is. That was one of the biggest culture shocks for me personally. It's, you know, in Australia, you could sit on in an office for 6 months prior to doing anything on site. Here, you're doing stuff on site within 2 weeks. So us being able to be mobile and agile is what's going to work for us here.
Your point around like everyone having accountability and this, like, it's a form of micromanagement, Will, is really interesting. I think previously, like a few weeks ago, we were talking about a similar topic, and you know, you can see how these like systems or processes get built up to protect against, let's say, like lowest common denominator, or like the, you know, let's assume we've got a totally hopeless person in this role, and what do we need to like build around that so they can't fuck up? And it seems like almost the flip side. So how does that probably drives to like hiring good people, and you're both great people. Like, how does like the hiring engine hire great people that deserve pay rises?
Thank you.
How does hiring, recruitment, and talent and stuff work at Martinus? Is it different to other contractors?
There's certainly not as many interviews, and it's not as formalized. When I recruit someone, I want to get to know the person. I want to get to know the individual. Yes, you need to understand whether they've got the experience, the knowledge, that they've got the experience for that role, but I also want to get to know the person. You know, former boss often said to me, you want to come to work every day knowing that you can get along with that person. Yeah, what about yourself, Mitch?
Yeah, I think a big one for us is that we don't necessarily look just at experience. We don't necessarily look just at knowledge. We very much look at attitude and potential ability. So, you know, the biggest thing in my mind is attitude. Do you want to sit down and rip in? Do you want to give everything and have a red hot crack at it, or are you just here to chug along and do the standard sort of work? And I think Martinus does really well at making sure that we attract the people who are willing to dig their heels in, willing to really
Mhm.
give it really willing to give it a red hot crack.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, what it does is, it brings other good people across. So all of a sudden, you crack it with a few, you set up the culture, everyone's enjoying it because everyone's has each other's back, working hard, working together, and then other people peer over the fence and go, oh, hang on a second, that looks good, that looks great. I'm gonna jump ship, and then it just builds from there organically. So I'd say Martinez. We hire through our people. So
Yep.
people know people in the industry already. People know what they're like, who they are, how they operate, and so we're able to be able to make that work and entice them over.
It's a really interesting point, Mitch, because we've got people here who aren't even engineers. Someone was an ex-Navy SEAL, someone was an ex-chef, but they've got the right attitude, don't they, Mitch? And they were the right fit for our company, and now we're just teaching them, and it seems to be working.
Yeah, I give great people like autonomy, responsibility, and resources, and what do you know? They produce great outcomes. It's like there's a lot of parallels to like the building like any company. They say like A's hire A's and B's hire C's and C's hire D's kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Our mantra is sort of an A player is worth 3 B players, and a B player is worth 5 C players. So let's make sure that we get all of the A's and keep lean and keep agile and keep moving.
Yeah, Will, you were halfway through telling the story of like your journey through, at Martinus and the expansion that you've gone through and then the push to North America. So
Yeah. So we purchased Bottom Line back in 2023. At that stage, we always want to grow. Martinez, we want to grow and grow. But we bought this Bottom Line company back in 2023. What we did by buying them, we bought an established business over here that had all these licenses in all the different states. So it's just not a federal license here. You've got to have a license per state. So that business already had them. We bought an established team that we thought had huge potential. At that stage, they were very much more of a subcontractor and a maintenance contractor, which is what we're going away from now. We also bought an established fleet of equipment, so specialized rail equipment, which is what we do, of course. Fast track 2 years now. We've gone away from doing the subcontracts, the maintenance jobs. We're now becoming more of a general contractor, which is where we want to get to. Even this year, we bought a job. We worth approximately $25 million. So we're leaning towards more of those kind of works.
The Australian business has a bunch of different like verticals within it. It's a fairly like diversified rail business. Is the goal to mirror that over in North America?
Definitely, right? So there's a lot of where we want to be in 5-10 years time is a key turnkey contractor. So we're designing the project, we're doing civil works, we're doing rail works, signaling, overhead wiring works, all of the scope within the rail corridor or the railroad, they call it here. It's not the railway, it's the railroad. So we want to, that's where we want to get to. Obviously there's a journey and there's a lot of, stages to get to that ultimate goal. First being becoming a general contractor, which is what we're doing this year. And we've obviously got to deliver a successful project as a general contractor. The next steps is we're already looking at becoming a build and a design and build contractor. So we're
Yeah.
already looking at a couple of projects. Hopefully we win and we can deliver on that. But we're also already looking at some projects to design and build the job as well. And then eventually we're looking at potential opportunities for signaling, overhead wiring, and ultimately becoming that turnkey contractor.
I guess there's probably like only a handful of people in the world, at least in Australia, that have done the job of trying to stand up from scratch or near scratch a contracting business in the US that's moved over from Australia. I wouldn't even know where to start in terms of like winning work and what that takes. Mitch, what does it take to kind of like bid and win work as a new entrant internationally in the US?
Yeah, for sure. It's an interesting concept because it is very different to Australia. So in Australia you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 month long RFP or bid submission timeframes and whatever else. Here, the projects tend to drop out of the sky, and you get 4 to 6 weeks. And that's things from $1 million up to 30, up to 60, all the way up to hundreds of millions of dollars. They're these really quick, sharp turnarounds. The great thing about it is that most, if not all of them, are price and schedule or program. So you get your price, you get your schedule together, and that's what you get assessed on. A lot of them will have, your capabilities and sometimes your CVs to ensure that you do have the right people and the ability to deliver the work. But that, if you tick those boxes, then it is all schedule and price, which is really cool because, I mean, for engineers, we like to build stuff. We don't really like to write huge, long management plans or bid submissions and everything else like that. We like to do price, program, and say that's how it's going to be done, and back yourself to be able to get it that way.
And so they when you say drop out of the sky, is that because that's the way that the procurement process happens there, or?
Yeah, I think it's 50 states, all individually doing their own stuff. Within those 50 states, you've got class ones, you've then got also the short lines, and you've got some private companies that are doing it as well. And so to be able to have your finger on the pulse for everything is near impossible. So you track certain jobs that you can see are strategic that you want, and you track those ones. But in the meantime, there are just multiple a week coming and dropping into our lap that we then have to scramble for and put a price together as well. And then on top of that, you've got then in each state you've got different licensing and registrations and business registrations, or you've got different labor rates. You've got to do certain things along those lines with not just different states, but also then within different counties you might have different tax exemptions or not in certain counties. So it's very interesting. It's a very technical thing to be able to get that and then quickly turn around the price that includes all of those differences between different areas. And it's a bit of an art form over here, I'd say. It's something that we're not quite yet nailing perfectly, but we're getting a lot better at.
And in that sub 100 mil sort of category, is the majority of the competition US firms with the sort of smaller jobs? And then is it tough against them because like everything we see in the UK is America's trying to promote their own companies, their own industry? Is it tough going against them?
It is in terms of if you can imagine, like we're growing and we've got certain overheads that need to be covered and whatever else within ours, and then if we're going against companies that are focused on those, let's say 5, 10 million, $15 million jobs that are smaller overheads, probably own their own gear and so can lease out their own gear to them for free and whatever else. It's tough slog. You struggle really hard to compete on price with those companies. Which is a big reason why we're sort of trying to make that step up and go into the more complex, bit more difficult projects. When you're getting sort of over 30 million where you need pre-qualifications and a few other items, the competition thins out. pretty significantly. There's quite a probably a handful of good established contractors over here that play in that 30 to 100 million. And then there's quite a few of them drop off when you get over 100 million and into the sort of more mega project type style.
And then what's the delivery model? If you're bidding work in different states, Mitch, is it you're subbing or self-delivery? What's the delivery model of the projects that you then win?
Most of it, I would say, if it's the rail specific, then we would self-deliver. So we've got a few crews, quite a few crews that will run, and they will do travel and FIFO essentially to the certain jobs. And then, at the moment we don't have the civil capability as what we do back in Australia, so we would sub a lot of that work out. But we've got a few good little partners now that are working on multiple jobs with us, and that we'll continue to work with in the future. But yeah, I'd say any of the rail stuff self-deliver for sure. Any of the civil, it goes to subs. We've then also got a really very well-established bridge division here in the US. So it came with Bottom Line, and it's been built up since then. And they do, over here, a lot of these bridges were built 50, 100 years ago, and they're getting to their end of life. Yep. So there's a lot of work, a lot of money going into the rehabilitation of these bridges. And that's what these crews do. So we've got timber bridge rehab crews, and we've got steel bridge rehab crews that travel all around the country and do that work.
We talked about hiring and recruitment generally before, but yeah, how does hiring and recruitment work in North America? How do you find yourself like hiring folks away from the equivalent, like tier 1 contractors? Where do you find people in North America?
I'd say at the moment it hasn't been that easy. No. Martinus, Bottom Line over here was one of those small maintenance contractors. Yep. And so there is a reason why we've sort of brought myself and Will across, and a few other engineers and a couple of site team members from Australia. So we've brought those in as a core team to be able to then build around. So it's going to be, as Will sort of said, winning the projects, delivering them well, building a name, a culture here, and then being able to reach out. And I think it'll be reaching into the tier 1s or the general contractors and seeing who wants a fresh start in a pretty cool company.
It's pretty incredible. Like I said, like very few people have done this, like build a contracting business from scratch, like transplanting country, and everything at the same time. So the like set of people that you can probably call on for advice, and the opportunity that's kind of in front of you is pretty incredible. And it takes a certain like entrepreneurial spirit. So how
that's
are you enjoying?
But that's Treven through and through.
But you guys
nothing's too big for Treven. Nothing is too big for Treven. And that flows down into the rest of the teams, into me and Mitch. Nothing's too big for us. Let's just keep growing the business. Let's set the bar high and keep going for that.
One of the things that I got introduced to when joining Martinus was the big, hairy, audacious goal is something that is, well known throughout the company, and each year, well, actually it's probably each year, every second year maybe, it gets updated with a new big, hairy, audacious goal, because we've either achieved it or we're looking likely we're going to exceed what the big, hairy, audacious goal was last year or the year before. So
circling back to culture, like that idea of those goals, even that in most tier 1 contractors doesn't really exist. Doesn't. So it'd be good to double click on what are the other bits of the culture that are very different from what you experience at your sort of vanilla? I like vanilla. Vanilla, that makes it sound negative. Vanilla's lovely.
That's what Mitch was talking about there. Like at previous companies, you wouldn't even know what the goal and vision is of that company. Here,
just get this project done. That's the thing.
You just
do your job.
Another bum on the
that's
seat,
it.
Right? You're just another bum on the seat. The equivalent of whoever Ryan and Treven are at another company wouldn't even know your name. Here, they get around, they know your names, they get to know you as a person. Everyone knows the vision and the goal of this business, and everyone's given a voice, essentially, right?
And
Definitely.
like I've seen, or I spoke to one of your colleagues a while back, who you'd just recently done a bunch of like leadership, offsite, everyone getting together. Again, these are things that like software companies would do, but construction contractors, it feels like don't run that way.
We had a leadership get together here in Austin. So when we moved here, we didn't have an office yet, but we've established this office now. And soon after, we had the leadership group all fly into Austin, spend most of the week here. And Treven flew in for it, and so we had 2 days sitting in a room going through his vision and then the vision of the company, and setting out not just the big hairy audacious goal, but the 5-yearly, the 3-yearly, the 1 year, the quarterly and the monthly goals, and we broke it down into the individuals. And that's something that we work pretty hard on weekly. Toby Briggs, the vice president who's come over here as well, he now runs a weekly leadership meeting with us where we go through our monthly and quarterly goals on the week to see how we're tracking. Are we going to achieve it? Knowing that those then feed into the yearly goal, knowing that then feeds into the 3-year goal, and then so on and so forth. So everyone's really, and then I've done the same with my pre-construction team. So then weekly after that one, I go through and say, okay, these are where we're at. This is what we need to focus on. So everyone seems to then be able to get aligned with it, with the overarching culture, the overarching mentality, where we're heading. And I think that gives a great foundation for people to buy in, to then feel like they have the accountability and why they have that accountability, because it's going to make a difference to the overall goal of the company in the future. Yeah.
Carlos, I'm here taking notes on getting team alignment.
You missed an important part there, Mitch. We also went to the Texas Longhorns game on the Saturday. All as a team. I think there was at least 20 of us, and that was interesting to note. It was 11 a.m. kickoff, so I think it was 10 a.m. beers, wasn't it, or 9 a.m. beers, Mitch? That was
not for me. I was still managing the kids, but I think you were in there a bit earlier. And
Robert.
Throw me under the bus, Mitch.
Hey, that's just jealousy speaking. But Treven there, and
everyone came. It was great. It was a great day, and it goes back to my earlier point. You want to be able to come to work each day knowing that you can enjoy who you work with, and simple things like that. Going to a college game on a Saturday, that just supports that idea, right?
I see a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of people that think about leaving construction, get disillusioned with working in construction because they feel disconnected from any sort of progression or bigger set of goals. And in fact, we happily hire a bunch of people from I won't try to hire you on a podcast then, but we hire folks from construction with that, they go, I'm in this thing and I'm not passionate about it anymore. And I'm not connected to like what I'm achieving. I'm just on the same sort of solve the same problems on the next project journey. That way of leading people and getting them connected and motivated to achieve something kind of bigger than just come to work and go home. It's really, definitely. Really unique. I don't see that at too many contractors.
Jace, funny you say that. It's a really good point because I think I was in a very similar scenario after I left the Sydney Light Rail project. I was at, I suppose, a bit of a loggerhead at my point in my career. I was, in my 20s, and I just didn't know whether this was the ultimate career path for me. And that was a tough slog, but it was just a tough environment to be in. I thought it was a bit toxic, that environment. And then I came to Martinus, and it was a really breath of fresh air. And I've never looked back since. So it's a really good point you make.
Will and I have been on some really, really tough projects since the Sydney Light Rail with Martinus. but it hasn't ever got to the point of wanting to walk away. And that's because of Martinus and the culture here, and the support that you get, but also the accountability, the free reign to run it and do things your way and see how it goes. So like,
yeah, in many ways it feels like we're like tapping into the same thing, which is, there's so many talents and things that construction people bring to the table. They're like hard grinders, really strong work ethic. Many of them are very, very quick and smart, and they're kind of just often drifting in like a career, and giving them like a purpose and space to have autonomy and ownership and be entrepreneurial, and they want to build something. And it feels like, I know some other folks that have joined Martinus, and it's like a new lease on life kind of thing.
Exactly. Breath of fresh air. Well, it was for me in any case. It was a breath of fresh air, and I'm still loving it.
Awesome. So that's the pitch for folks that are looking for their next role, whether that be in Austin, Texas, whether they're a Longhorn supporter or not, or in Oz. But I think that's how you get good people. Carlos, final question to you.
No, I was going to say there's a lot of companies that would say our culture is different, but actually hearing that it is different, and it's refreshing to hear. Like the companies I'm used to, the connection to like the company goals of the vision is an annual roadshow with some slides and some like horrible slogan about building tomorrow today. Not to actually name one of the old slogans. So it genuinely does sound different, and it sounds great, and it's it's good to hear, because everyone will say that line, but very few actually like have the substance behind what they're saying.
One of the big ones that I think you can visually see we're a bit different is because of our management suite. There is very few people that have grey hair in our management. I'd say most of them would be 45 and under, including Treven. So you look at that and you go, there is still that energy, there is still that real drive. Haven't been grinded down by the industry just yet. People are looking and trying to find ways to grow and to better and to do all the rest of that within the company. So it's pretty cool, And then the other thing is that, like, Will and I, we're both fairly young, especially Will, and been put into these roles, and there's nowhere else that would do this. But it's because Martinus do it on merit, not on how many years are on the page. They do it on merit, on your ability, and on your potential ability, which is really cool.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think that conversation entirely matches the observations that I'd had before knowing a ton about Martinus through just interacting with folks across the company. So it's not like we just picked the two best spokespeople to like talk about it. But it's like, it does feel like it's broadly across the business. And like, as someone that is trying to like build a team and a culture, it's pretty impressive to have to see such a big company where that like culture is there. So yeah, to you guys and to the wider team, it's impressive. And folks that are thinking about what their next role is should think Martinus. Cool. That's going to be time for us. Carlos, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate you joining us today, and thank you everyone for who has listened along. Please do think about liking this video or following us on your chosen podcast platform. We appreciate your support, and we'll catch you all very soon.
Thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.
Lovely.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.